for a second from the young ones that are trying to get in, and let's talk about the seasoned veterans and the stuff like that. I'm curious about what challenges there are right now when it comes to contracts for drivers and the things that they are up against. And this can also be an athlete, just if you don't want to go specific to drivers. But what are the challenges today in today's sports climate that these athletes are facing when trying to get good deals, fair deals?
Yeah,
sponsorship, contract, all of it.
I would say the number one key to all driver contracts now are sponsorships.
Yeah.
There is a number that the team needs to get to make sure that driver gets paid what he wants to get paid. And what I've seen lately, Fred and I, we were actually just discussing this today earlier, is when we see a contract and it is heavily based on bonus programs, they don't have a lot of money for that car.
That's right.
Okay, that's the number one thing when you're reviewing a contract and it is heavy bonus program. That means they're basically banking on you not making the playoffs, you not winning a race, because they need that sponsorship fund to continue the car, which is fine. That's how the sport is. I mean, you have $20 million in that race car, your driver's making a pretty penny. You have $3 million in that race car, your driver's probably only making purse money. But that's what this sport is, and this sport's been around for a long time, so it works. Okay, but what we're seeing right now, and we talked about this earlier when we were talking, that you don't see a race car with 38 races with the same sponsor anymore.
No,
doesn't happen anymore. 2010, 2013, 80% of the cars. I mean, I remember this is how crazy it was. I was telling Tony Stewart this a while back. I remember when he had an Alpha Bravo paint scheme, you know what I mean, with Old Spice and Office Depot. And I was like, 2 sponsors on one car? How is this going to work? But he made it work. And then all of a sudden it went from that to, okay, you got 2 sponsors, 3 sponsors. I mean, for the longest time with Kevin, he had GM Goodwrench for 90% of his races and then 10% with Reese's. And then GM Goodwrench kind of went, and then went into Reese's and Ream, and then they went away. Then it went Jimmy Johnson. And now today, 21 years later, he's got 7 Cup sponsors for one guy. So, but you look at that, but that's the new norm. So sponsorship is what drives our sport. And if you don't have a sponsorship, your driver's not getting paid. So you have to risk it. I mean, I risk it with a couple guys and say, hey man, go out there and win a race or sneak into the playoffs and you're going to get paid. So that's how it is. But bonus programs are the key. When I look at a contract, and same thing when I send it off to Fred and we're both reviewing this stuff, the first thing we say is, okay, here's what we think he's going to make, but projected if he gets 1 win, his salary is going to the money he's going to make is going to triple. It's going to be like that because that's how they have to. It's just a balance act.
That doesn't sound great for the driver. I mean, like to me, like it's just less guaranteed. There's not money to guarantee anybody in a big contract. Is what all you're saying is that the sponsorship landscape's too sort of, I don't know, precarious or whatever it is. Is that what you're saying?
It just depends. Some drivers. I mean, the top guys.
Yeah,
they're fine.
They're
fine.
Let's not talk about that.
We're talking the middle tier. Let's talk about basically 13 to 30th.
Okay. Right.
Those guys are fighting, risking it all, racing hard, and all that stuff. I mean, look at Ryan Preece as an example the other day. I mean, after Daytona.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan, he is probably one of the hardest working athletes in general that I have, because not only is he a professional race car driver, but he brings 90% of that sponsorship dollars on his own. Like all that stuff, he works hard for that. Now he's got relationships and he works hard for that. And he works just as hard on the racetrack as he does off the racetrack to keep everybody happy, because that's how he is. You know what I mean? So he is the kind of guy that I look at and say, does he make a lot of money? He does good. He makes great money. He does great. He's got a beautiful family, just had a kid. He does all that. But he busts his butt both on and off the track to be able to get what he has. And that is key. That is key. I mean, you look at a lot of these guys have sponsor dollars. A lot of these guys have it, whether it's family, friends, whatever it is, it works. Some guys don't. So the guys that don't have to bust it to get to where they need to be. Now, they're all professional athletes. They make left-hand turns for a living. So life isn't bad. But at the end of the day, some guys work a lot harder for their sponsorship than other guys do. And Kevin, and you look at, like, for instance, with Kevin. We talked about this earlier. Kevin works hard for his sponsors because he's kept them for 20 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think everybody has to work hard.
They work
days,
hard,
right?
But Kevin's working hard is different. I mean, Kevin working hard is, I mean, that 4 car is fast. He's won a lot of races. He won championships, so it comes with the name. He's a champion. These younger guys that are coming up, I mean, you look at Harrison Burton, you look at Todd Gilliland, you look at some of these guys, they're good race car drivers. They've won at trucks. They've won at Xfinity Series. The Cup is hard. To win at a Cup Series, it's very hard. And once you win, you're still not guaranteed a spot. Okay, there's Cup drivers that have won in the last 8 or 9 years that aren't racing anymore. So, but my point is, when you get to the top level, it's not like baseball and football where 20 years or $200 million on 7 years. It's not like that. Like you have to bust it. And if you bust it and you're not getting it done, they will make a change.
Be specific. When you say when it's busting it off the track, what specifically are you needing them to do to better their opportunities?
Off the track?
Is it cold calling?
No. It's
Is
like
it showing up at the local Ace Hardware?
Well,
is it what is it signing? Is it doing free autograph sessions? What specifically are they doing?
Working to build your brand. These guys are still building their brands in the Cup Series. I mean, they are still building their brands. So we'll use Ryan as an example. Ryan had that crazy wreck the other day. Okay, crazy wreck, and he went from here in a week or overnight to here. I mean, we were turning down ABC News, we had a lot of opportunities. His brand grew like that. Would he want to do that again? Absolutely not.
No.
Okay. But my point is
that how you want to do it?
but my point is he went to there. Now we have sponsors that are excited about the future with him, and he's a couple top 10 finishes of late, but he busted in the gym. When he's done in the gym, he goes straight into the marketing office. He goes and meets with the sales guy. He goes and meets with his crew chief. He goes and meet with the content team. Then he comes over to KHI and meets with us. He works. He is a hard worker. He is a hard-working kid, for sure. But he does it all. Like, he has to. Like, he's got 8 or 9 sponsors in that car. He brought those sponsors to the table. So he wants to make sure in the marketing office, you guys doing everything right for these sponsors? You know what I mean? Anything I could do to help you? And stuff like that.
That's a personality thing too, because I've heard drivers, that have come through here that talk about, and L-Dub says this from time to time for himself whenever he was trying to make it in the Busch Series, is that he wasn't persistent enough. Because persistence can be negative or positive, right, depending on what's going on. And, you have to be persistent. You have to work hard. You have to be diligent, and, just work it hard. If I saw every one of my drivers in here every day of the week, that would be amazing. If I see one that's in here every day of the week and one that's in here once every 2 weeks, I've obviously got a different opinion about how hard they're working, right? And what they're doing for themselves. So yeah, I think that persistence is necessary.
Yeah. And when you get to this level,
market, right?
When you get to this level, you need to be around your team.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan works out with his team every morning. He works out with his team. I mean, Harrison Burton is in the shop visiting his guy. Todd Gilliland goes over to see his guys. Take him out to dinner. Be a part of it. Just make it one family. Kevin, it's amazing what Kevin does with his team. I mean, since I started with him in 2002, basically, I mean, whether it was a hockey game or a basketball game or a football game, we take the team. We just call up and get a suite and do all this stuff and entertain them to make them feel like, because those crew guys, they bust their butts so hard. In the old days when you'd leave Thursday morning and you'd come home basically Monday morning or midnight, like they were gone 4 days and they worked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and there was no time to enjoy it. So we do that. And that's the same thing with these young kids.
You got to take care of people.
These young kids. Yeah. I mean, William does an amazing job. I mean, with his race teams, he does an amazing job for these kids. He helps them out. He goes out to lunch with them. He takes them to dinner. He takes his ARCA crew chief out. They talk. Like, that's what you need to do. Build a relationship. It's not just show up, race the car, and go home.
Yeah.
You have to put effort into it. And that's what I like.
What about social media? You talk about how they need to be working on their social media to get opportunities and to start building followings and that. But we all know that can also come backfire on you with just a slip up here. There's not a lot of forgiveness. You can lose a job fast. Okay, so my question, I guess, and because we get this a lot too. I mean, Kelly, you got 4 drivers that at any one time you're responsible for, and how they're behaving on social media. You can't be keeping an eye on them and your own kids and everybody else. So what do you guys do in terms of trying to manage, follow, keep in touch? Are you checking social media a lot? Are you having conversations with your drivers about how they how they engage with people on social media matters? What's your take on all that?
Well, 90% of my clients are grown men, so I kind of let them do what they want to do until they mess up, and we talk to them. I mean, there's every blue moon we'll get somebody will send a note and say, "Hey, should I post this?" Golf, those guys speak their mind a lot, especially when the Live Tour came about.
Wow, yeah.
So a couple of my golfers, or one of my golfers, loved to go on and post his opinions on a lot of stuff, and we got a lot of heat from fans and the PGA Tour itself. We're honest about it. But he talked to the PGA Tour why he did this and why he said that, and it kind of is fine there. But I tell my NASCAR drivers, and especially the young kids, and my young kids, their parents are still doing their social media, so it's fine. But my UFC fighters and all that, nothing good happens after 9 o'clock to 9 a.m. The 99 rule. The UFC came up with that many years ago in a meeting I sat in. It's the 99 rule. Nothing good happens between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. on social media. Nothing. Unless you have a scheduled post to go out. When you're posting something at 11 o'clock at night, you've been drinking or something, and you'll probably regret it. So it's the 99 rule. And the UFC came up with it 5 or 6 years ago, and basically don't post after 9 p.m. or before 9 a.m. And that was the 99 rule. And we've been pretty good with our UFC fighters on that and our golfers and stuff. I'm not really worried about the NASCAR stuff. Honestly, Kevin doesn't even post. I mean, he looks at it. We post mostly for him. KHI does, because we post for a lot of our kids when it comes to sponsor plugs, pre-post race reports, or tune-in alerts. We do all that kind of stuff. But we haven't had that problem. Now, is there social media problems? Yes, NASCAR's got some problems on social media that we've seen. But I think it's about the people you surround yourself with and staying on them and bringing it up. I mean, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody, but we, as a company, when we bring a client in, we go through everything. Here's who's going to do your social media. This is Kelly. Here's going to do your marketing. Here's going to do this. And they know. So they reach out to Kelly if they want to post something, and she helps them with it, and it goes from there. But it's social media for us has been fine, but it's not fine for a lot of people.
I think it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. You know, you have to have a certain level of credibility, integrity. I was laughing hard yesterday on Denny Hamlin's responses to so many people on social media. It was hilarious because, you know, they said he caused the wreck and da-da-da-da-da, and just his responses were just great.
Very sarcastic.
Yeah. Right. Like, but they were sarcastic, but he couldn't get in trouble for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you knew what he was implying, but they were straight up good, solid, nothing to get in trouble for comments, right? But there's a level of credibility for Denny Hamlin in doing so. He wins.
Yep.
He's a champion. He's got, you know, great sponsors. And so I think, you know, at some point there's that, obviously certain things can get you in trouble, don't get me wrong, but there's a credibility of how you can interact on social media with people, you know, and doing that kind of stuff and being yourself, because you want to be true to who you are, right?
Oh yeah, you don't want to be fake.
Well, okay, but on that point, let me play devil's advocate for a second. You don't want to be fake, but then you also said that you guys, the company, the management team, does a lot of the posting for the.
Well, that's the easy stuff.
Yeah, that's the easy stuff. They don't want to do that stuff. That's not them. What we're saying is that's
a PR role.
Yeah, like if Denny Hamlin's being real and giving these funny responses, knowing he's not going to get in trouble, he's not going to say, "I didn't mean to do that. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry." Like, that's fake. You
or
know
he's
what I mean?
not going to say like "f off" or something like that, right? I mean, he's going to give a reply. You know, he's you know.
Denny Hamlin is a great example. Denny Hamlin is a great example. And you look at all our sports, like she just said, Denny Hamlin can post stuff like that on his social media, but he's got to be careful, because if he doesn't have sponsors at the top of our game, just like Kyle Busch with Mars and M&Ms, okay, you have to be on your game, okay? But in basketball and football and baseball, you can make those comments and still play tomorrow morning or still play the next day because that's a team. You know what I mean? That's a team sport. Not saying anything bad. Like, you can't do bad stuff. But they're not going to penalize you. But if Denny just made a comment of, I don't even know what it is, of nice shirt, or you should put a shirt on, and talking about somebody with a post, or just saying something like that, those fans could turn around and go right at Denny, start tagging FedEx, start doing all this stuff.
That's right, the sponsors.
Yeah.
Just tagging the sponsors.
That's right.
That's when it gets bad. But in other sports, they don't have sponsors. They have a team. And usually the person that's running the social media, the team, is not going to go and say, "Hey, don't say that." They just tagged the Detroit Tigers and said, that doesn't matter. But when FedEx or Anheuser-Busch or any sponsor you can think of, doesn't have to be Denny, any sponsor, if they start getting tagged on comments, the first thing they're going to do is, we got to protect our brand. Who cares about the driver?
Right. And so your response to that is what?
If a sponsor called me and said, "Hey, your driver,"
I have a problem. let's use the golfer, for example.
Okay.
Like, and you didn't use a name,
Yep.
so we'll just say this golfer
Yep.
who is very opinionated. We want them to be opinionated, don't we? We want people, but then all of a sudden it starts affecting the people that pay, which is the sponsors, and they're calling you, Josh, not them, but you, saying, "Hey, shut him up. I got a problem with that. What do you do?"
We actually almost had that problem. We actually stayed ahead of it. When we saw the posts that were coming, and Rory McIlroy, Rory came out and made a comment about him. We stayed ahead of it. We called the sponsors and just gave them all a heads up. We screenshotted some stuff and said, "Hey, this little feud's going on right here, just FYI." And a lot of our sponsors didn't care. They were like, cool, whatever. But we stayed ahead of it. What you don't want to do is have them call you. If you can beat them and call them first, you're fine. Mm-hmm. But if they're calling you, you're in trouble. We haven't had that. Lately we had that with a UFC fighter about 7 years ago. We had one of our fighters, no longer with us. She's not a part of KHI anymore. But we had a sponsor call us and basically said, "Hey, we don't like a post that she just posted. Can you get her to take it down?" Well, we asked her to take it down, and she kind of got defensive. So we had to pick. Do we keep this client or do we keep the sponsor? And the sponsor's paying millions, so we had to part ways with the client. And it was mutual.
With
it was
the person, not the sponsor.
It was fine with the athlete.
Yeah.
With the athlete, we parted ways just because of that, and it worked. But we still have the sponsor today. So think about that. That was 7 years ago. So if you can stay ahead of everything, it's no different than a suspension in NASCAR. A suspension in any sport there is. If you can get to the client or get to the sponsor before they read it on social media, you got a 75 to 80% chance that everything's going to be fine.